This is our lecture about the integumentary system. This is the second lecture. We are going to continue our talk about skin and its appendages. In this lecture, lecture 2, we are going to talk about dermo-epidermal junction, dermis, hair, and lastly, spacious gland. What is the dermis? The dermis, it is the connective tissue that support the epidermis, which is mesodermal in origin. The dermis is mesodermal in origin. It rich in blood vessels, lymphatic and nerve supply, in contrast to the epidermis, which is avascular. It also contains epidermal derivatives as hair follicles, the spacious gland, and the sweat glands. Dermis and the epidermis are separated by basement membrane. This is the basement membrane which separates the both layers. This is the dermo-epidermal junction. As we said in the last lecture, the dermo-epidermal junction reveals dermal papillae, which is upward projection of the dermis, and epidermal ridges, which is downward growth of the epidermis, which form the dermo-epidermal junction. As we see like this, intervegetation between dermis and the epidermis, and it's help in the fixation of the both layers. As you see here, the the epidermal downward projection and the dermal upward projection result in the formation of reflected on the surface of the skin by irregularity on the surface of the skin, as we see here, and as we see here also. There is irregularity on the surface of the thick skin, which lead to the formation of fingerprints, which is distinctive to each individual of us. So we can say that fingerprints is the pattern which is unchangeable forever and show individual specificity, and it is also used, as we all of us know, for personal dedication. Regarding the dermis, there are two layers of the dermis: the superficial layer, which is the papillary dermis, here, and the deeper layer is the reticular dermis. To compare between the papillary and the reticular dermis, papillary layer is a superficial layer, and it is the layer which forming the dermal papillae. However, the reticular layer is a deep layer. The papillary layer formed of loose connective tissue. It means it is delicate layer of collagen type 1 and type 3 and elastic fibers. However, the reticular layer is the thick layer and formed of dense connective tissue. It means it is formed of thick bundles of collagen fibers type 1 and type 3 and thick elastic fibers. Papillary layer is more cellular than being fibrous. It contains fibroblast, mast cell, plasma cell, and macrophage. I mean the connective tissue cells. The papillary layer more rich in blood supply, rich with capillary loops. However, the reticular less vascular. Regarding the papillary layer, the nerve receptors present in the papillary layer are the myelin corpuscles, which is touch receptors. In the reticular layer, there is Pacinian corpuscle, Raffini corpuscle, and Cruz end bulb. What are the functions of dermis? The first function, the dermis help or support the epidermis, as the dermis bind the epidermis to the underlying hypodermis or the subcutaneous tissue. The second function of the dermis is nutritional, as the epidermis, as we said, the epidermis, which is stratified, squamous epithelium, keratinized epithelium, is avascular. So the epidermis take its blood supply and its nutrition from the underlying blood vessels which is present in the dermis. How the epidermis is fixed to the dermis? First, by hemidesmosomes, which we talk about it in the previous lecture, and second, by the dermal papillae. Now we are going to talk about nail glands, which are sweat and spacious glands. The hair. Now I'm going to talk about the hair. When I talk about the hair, I will talk about two issues. The first is the hair itself, which is divided into three parts: the hair pulp, which is a dilated terminal part, and the shaft of the hair, which is a part here present or embedded in the skin, and the last part is the hair shaft, which is project from the surface of the skin. So I have three parts of the hair: hair shaft, which is a part of the hair project above the surface of the skin. The second part of the hair is the root, which is embedded in the hair follicle or present in the hair follicle. And the third part is the hair pulp, is the terminal dilatation of the hair, which is invaginated, as we see here, by highly vascular connective tissue called hair papillae or dermal papillae. Regarding the shaft of the hair, as we said, the shaft of the hair, which is a part of the hair present above the surface, project above the surface of the skin. The shaft formed of three layers: medulla, cortex, and cuticle. Regarding the medulla, it is the central part here. This is the medulla. Regarding the medulla, it is a narrow core of the hair formed of large vacuolated cell, moderately keratinized, contains soft keratin. This layer is free of pigment, and it is present only in the thick hair. It is absent in the fine hair. The second part, or the second layer of the shaft of the hair, is the cortex. This layer, it is formed of heavily keratinized cells contain hard keratin, and in this layer the cell contain pigment which is responsible for the color of the hair. The last layer is the cuticle. This one formed of flattened cells, as we see, or flattened scales, which contain The second part of the hair is the root of the hair. The root of the hair, which is a part of the hair which embedded in the dermis or in the skin, in the hair follicle. Its structure is similar to the structure of the shaft of the hair. I mean, it is formed of three layers: medulla, cortex, and cuticle. And medulla only present, as I said, in the coarse hair, not present in the fine hair or thin hair. The third part of the hair is the hair pulp. It is the terminal dilatation of the hair, and it is invaginated, as we see here, by dermal papillae or hair papillae, which is highly vascular. And this part of the hair follicle contain the matrix cell. What is the matrix cell? We are going to talk about it later. What is the hair matrix or the matrix cell or germinal matrix? It is group of cell, here rapidly dividing and differentiating group of cell, arise from or derived from the follicular bulge or the hair bulge, and I will talk about this bulge or bulge cell later on. These cells are responsible for the regeneration or the formation of the hair, or forming the concentric layers of the hair shaft, and it is underlined here by or invaginated by dermal papillae or hair papillae, which is highly vascular. Now I'm going to talk about the structure of the hair follicle, or the home of the hair. The hair follicle formed of three layers. First is the internal root sheath, external root sheath. This the first layer, internal root sheath. then the second layer external root sheath, and the third layer is the connective tissue sheath, which is a blue one. Internal root sheath, this is the first layer from inside, which is in contact with the hair itself. It is formed of group of latent cells. It is a group of latent cells. As we see here, disappear at the level of spacious gland. This is the blue one. This is the internal root sheath, which disappear at the level of spacious gland, formed of latent cell, which is rich in the second layer of the hair follicle is the external root sheath, this one, which is considered as a continuation of the layer of the epidermis, downward continuation of the epidermis. At the level of erector pili muscle, this muscle, there are a group of cells here called bulge cell or follicular cells, which give rise to the matrix cell, which is present here in the hair pulp or the terminal hair pulp. Again, as I said before, in this part, which is the hair pulp, there is rapidly differentiating cells called matrix cell, which derived from follicular bulge cell. Where is the follicular bulge cell? Present here at the insertion of the erector pili muscle. This is here stem cell niche, which give rise to the matrix cell. Regarding the hair growth, as I said before, the growth of the hair is the responsibility of cells of matrix cell, which is present here, matrix cell present here in the hair follicle, in hair pulp of the hair follicle يعني. The hair growth pass through different stages. The first one is growth stage, where a new hair develop, then the growth stop, then long rest period, where in this stage there is atrophy of the hair follicle, then the hair lost and drop. By age, the melanocyte become unable to make tyrosinase enzyme and melanin. Therefore, the hair start to be gray and lose its color. Erector pili muscle is a smooth muscle, arise here from the dermal papillae and have an oblique course to be inserted in the connective tissue sheath midway of its length, and passing or touching the spacious gland. Now I'm going to talk about the spacious gland. What is the type of a spacious gland? Spacious gland, as we see here, is simple branched alveolar gland. Its duct open into the hair follicle in the upper third of the hair follicle. Each side present all over the body except some palm of the hand and sole of the foot. In few sides they develop or present without hair follicle, as in eyelid, papillae of the breast, glands penis, and labia minor. The spacious gland release its secretion by holocrine way, or by holocrine is considered the holocrine gland. As here, the cell starts to accumulate the sebum or the secretion inside it until it reaches to a level the cell become full of the secretion, and the cell itself shed into the duct of the spacious gland. So as you know, any gland formed of secretory part and duct system. The secretory part of the spacious gland formed of two types of cell. First is the basal cell, which is a flattened cell, and it is considered as undifferentiated cell, which gives rise to or replace the inner cells. and the central cell, which is, as we see here, cubical or rounded cell and vacuolated cell. By electron microscope, this cell contain or rich in rough endoplasmic, smooth endoplasmic, glycogen, and lipid droplets. What is the function of spacious glands? Spacious glands secrete the sebum. The sebum is formed is a mixture of cellular debris and oily or fatty material. The sebum, the function of the sebum, it oil the hair and lubricate the skin, so prevent the evaporation of water from the skin and protect the skin from cracking. It may also have an antibacterial action. As we said, the mode of secretion of a spacious gland is holocrine secretion. First, the basal cell proliferate by mitosis. Then, this basal cell pushing the cells into the middle. The cells start to accumulate lipid droplets inside it until it becomes large and polygonal and distended by secretion. Then there is necrosis of this cell. When it reaches to a level become distended, fully distended with the secretion, it become necrotic and pushed away into from the nutrition. Then these cells shed into the duct system, and the erector pili muscle help in the squeezing of the gland to help it to release its secretion. When there is disturbance in the secretion of the sebum, disturbance in the function of the spacious gland in the secretion of the sebum, it leads to formation of acne. What is acne? اللي هي حبوب الشباب, as we see here, هي حبوب الشباب. What is happen here? It is an inflammatory disorder in the spacious gland. What happened is excessive keratinization in the skin, excessive production of the sebum, which lead to blockage in the duct of the spacious gland. Then infection occur on top and inflammation occur on top of in this spacious gland. The skin has a good capacity for repair and regeneration. In wound, there is wound healing by two processes or through two processes. First, release of growth factor, which is secreted by platelet or macrophage, and the second process is the epithelialization of this defect. When the defect is small, re-epithelialization occurs by the stem cell in the basal layer, which is a stratum basal. Lakin when the defect is large, epithelialization occurs by stem cell in the stratum basal, and also in the stem cell which is present in the bulge region or bulge stem cell, which present, I hope you remember its site. It is present in the external root sheath of the hair follicle at the insertion of what? Of erector pili muscle. I wish you all understand well, and I could explain any confused subject or confused issues for you. See you in the next lecture, inshallah.